Welcome to He Did This to Me, the sports podcast from a father and son who happen to be mostly optimistic Knicks, Mets, and Jets fans. My name is Nick, aka Goody, and with me is my old man, aka the big guy, Noel. And just like his name, all we do is win. Let's get to the show. It's time to begin. What a difference a week makes. A week ago, we were talking about taking over the 2 seed. Knicks were riding high, had just won 3 straight. They've now lost 3 straight, and they are fighting to stay out of the play-in, currently in 5th and only a couple games out of 7th. Talk to me, big guy. How are we feeling about our Knicks after this recent downturn?
Hey, it's a tight race, and just like NBA games, the NBA season is just like that. It's so tight, both in the East and the West, but of course we're concentrating on the East, that a 2 or 3 game losing streak can make a huge difference. Now, hopefully we can pick it up in these last few games, but we just have to come with this, Nick. I mean, we have to listen. As long as we make the playoffs, I think we got a shot. I think we need to be more at full strength to have a real shot, but as long as we make the playoffs, and we will, it'll be interesting and we'll do well. We just got to get healthy, man. I mean, we're going to get healthy and much to hold on to.
Yeah, I mean, I'm tired of talking about health and, wanting to be whole and wondering what this team could or maybe will be. It's getting to the point where it's got to happen now. It's not like there's no more looking to the future and hoping that things work out. Like, it's got to happen now. The other thing that I'm tired of talking about, and it continues to be a major narrative for me, for Tom Thibodeau, and for a lot of people in Knicks land, is the officials. I think it's 3 back-to-back, especially the first 2 horrid games by the officials. And I think that that's something that typically has its way of evening out over the course of a season. I think that we've lost. I put on Twitter the other day that there's been at least 5 games where there were late calls that went against us that were game-changing calls. Now, we do have the game against Detroit where we had a late game call that went our way. Okay, that's one I could think of. On the flip side, especially, in the waning moments, somebody actually replied to me and they gave a pretty detailed breakdown and said there's been 7 games where there's been horrible calls that have gone against us in the last minute or so. One of those games was the game against the Pacers where Brunson got punched in the face in the middle of the court and it wasn't called, but we did actually end up winning that game. Thibodeau has come out and, a couple days ago, it was just, hey, write what you see. And then after the game against the Heat, he decided to say, he's getting fouled, he's getting fouled, he's getting fouled, he's getting fouled, he's getting fouled. Obviously, Tid is at his wit's end, just like I am. And yeah, I mean, at this point, it's hard to understand how the game can be officiated so unfairly towards one team over the course of a season. And it's not just I'm a Knicks fan, so I watch. I think there really is something to that. I'm not saying that there's some big nefarious plan. I'm not saying that that's always the specific reason why we lose a particular game. I'm saying that it has been a specific reason sometimes, and it's contributed to it many times.
I think it contributes to it. I don't think there is I don't think it's as slanted as you do. I think that the coach is being a coach. He's trying to get calls and change things his way. I think there are some times when we get the bad end of calls. There's no doubt about it. I think this last game, I think if you come into a fourth quarter up by 10 and you let the other team go 12 or 13 to start the quarter, and then you miss 6 or 14 foul shots down the stretch, I don't think you blame the game on one call. I think we lost that game. I think that, I also noticed that they had spoken about after the All-Star game, the league came out and said they're going to try to stop calling as many fouls. And, especially when people are seeking fouls. And I think Jalen Brunson is great. I love Jalen Brunson. Favorite player, no doubt about it. Does he play a style of game where he looks for contact? Yeah, he does. And sometimes I think like right now with the league making changes, because look, I heard, who was it on earlier? Alan Hahn, I believe, brought up that Steve Kerr brought up that in say before the All-Star break in like November or December, Stephen Curry, same amount of games, got 80-something foul shots. Same amount of games in March, got 30-something foul shots. They're just not calling it as much. I think I hope that Jalen Brunson makes adjustments solely for the purpose of that. He has to play through it, and certain times, I think he's looking for the foul call instead of that he shouldn't. But he has to keep playing his game. But also, too, I worry about him getting hurt. I almost feel like I don't want him taking charges at the end of the season. But I know that's his game. But geez, man, this guy, he is on the ground 85% of the time. He goes to the hole, and it's not always just that somebody hits him. He always goes to the ground, and I just hope he doesn't injure himself that way. I really do. But we got to play through it. There's nothing else we can do.
Specifically about going to the ground, there's many guys in the NBA who go to the ground to avoid injury. There's,
Okay.
back in the day, they would bring in guys. Like I remember, I forget exactly which team it was, but some teams
Right, to help him how to fall.
They brought in like a professional skateboarder to
Right.
show the guys how to fall. And I think that, when you're falling to the ground and, you're trying to stay on your feet sometimes, I think that's when knees and ankles and things go the wrong way. So that, that I do think that, and I
hope
definitely
that's the
think
case.
Brunson sometimes is specifically doing that. It seems as if he's doing that, but I also just think he's getting fucking fouled. And, at the end of the day, I'm sorry, but there's so many. It's not just that he's getting fouled. It's that I'm seeing the opposite happen on the flip side. The first play of the game against Miami, Jalen Brunson gets called for a ticky-tack foul. And it's like, y'all really gonna call a ticky-tack foul on this guy after what just happened and transpired at the end of last game? And I did hear the whole stat with Steph, and clearly they have made a change. First of all, I think changing how you officiate and call the game mid-season is bullshit. I think that is a horrible way to go about things and makes it extremely difficult on the players and on the refs. It makes it extremely difficult on both of them to continue doing what they're doing when you make a mandate like that. I get it in the offseason. You start up the season, you call it a little bit more this way or that way, and you give the players a chance to adjust. But doing that right now, I think is asinine. I think it makes absolutely no sense. And I think it's extremely unfair to everybody involved: coaches, players, referees, fans, everybody. Okay. And I think the part about Jalen Brunson seeking fouls is bullshit. I think that a guy like Trae Young, especially a couple years ago, is a guy who was trying to get whistles. Jalen Brunson plays through contact. He's always trying to get the finish. Even if he gets bumped and he gets bumped and he reacts to it, he's still always trying to get the actual shot off and trying to make the shot, which is why he ends up with so many and ones. He's averaging 7 assists. I'm sorry, 7 free throws a game, early in the season. Now he's down to 3. So as you said, they've changed it, but he plays in the paint a whole lot more than Steph Curry does. Okay. So he should be getting a lot more of these calls. It's not even just the fouls against Brunson. There's certain things that I see where, first of all, Bam Adebayo, dirtiest player in the league. One of the dirtiest players I've ever seen. He tries to trip somebody at least once a game. I sent you that. I don't know if you saw that post I sent you before, where you can't say that's a natural basketball play. He sticks his foot out and trips Brunson, man. And you know what? That's not basketball, and that's not how the game's supposed to be played. And the Knicks should have somebody that cat needs to catch an elbow. Somebody needs to run straight through him. Somebody needs to do something because, again, I said this earlier in the season. We need to start. If they're going to play, especially our best player, who's our smallest player, a certain way, we have to deliver that back to them. And if that leads to some guys, getting a flagrant, getting a technical, or, guys having to get no snows because they're upset with people, then that's what we need to do. But it's even little things like when they said that Mitch stole the tap against Wemby. I mean, that call in that juncture of the game just never gets made. Last night, Bam Adebayo had a ball that was over the rim that he tapped back in. Not called. It's just too many calls that are just consistently this season not going our way. I don't know exactly what that is. Is that just bad luck? I don't know what it is, but I'm just calling it for what I'm seeing. And there's certain NBA games, and as much as we play, and as much as as much as things go on, hey, what's his name? The Thunder, they shot terrible from the line as well. What they didn't get was a blatant call not called against them that possibly makes us not get that extra point and be able to get into overtime. I think that always you're going to be able to look at a game and say, we should have done this better. We should have done that better and this and that. But you know what? The refs should be better. They should be better, and they're not, and they're terrible. They're doing a terrible job, and they've been fucking us all year.
Okay, I mean, I don't necessarily see it that way, Nick. I think we've gotten a bad luck on some calls, but yeah, I think most of the games we lost. That's
Yeah, we
it.
lost
I
them
mean,
because we had bad calls. That was one of the contributing factors to us losing the
okay,
game.
that's not what I'm saying. You know, that's not what I'm saying.
I
But okay,
yeah, but I just to me it's the, you could never it's impossible to ever say there's one particular reason why we lose a game. There's always multiple different contributing factors. I'm saying that's been too that has been a factor more often than it should be, and more often than it has been for other teams, and definitely more often than it has been a time. There's been one game where we've had a blatant call that didn't go our way in the waning moments, and it's like, yeah, hey, we got one there. Lucky for us.
right, Nick. But if we were fans, I always say this to you: if you do you really think you look at this totally unbiased, and if we were fans of another team, we might not feel the same way about our team?
First of all, I
We're
have all the
looking at it as
bias.
Nick fan,
I
right? We're
have all
looking
the
at it as
bias.
Nick
I'm a Knicks
fans.
fan. Yes,
So,
I'm a Knicks fan. I
right,
have all
but
the
don't
bias. I
say
don't give
that
a
it's
fuck
not
about any of
happening
these
to
other teams.
other
But
teams.
it's
It
not though,
is.
because there's people who watch NBA. There's people who analyze NBA who are saying that the Knicks have gotten the short end, and we've showed up in the last 2 minutes. It's statistically, we have been on the wrong end of the last 2 minute report more than any team in the NBA this season. I think it's like 18 times. That's a stat. That's a stat that's given out by the officials in the NBA. So it's not just like it's my bias in the way that I feel. Yes, I love the Knicks. I hate all referees. All those things are true, no matter what's going on. But the statistics, the NBA statistics, what they're giving us have told us that the Knicks have gotten fucked more than any other team thus far this year. It's not even close.
I don't know what
I
you want me
uh
to say.
I know, but it's not just me, my bias. I mean, it is the NBA
I
statistics
get
that
it,
say this
Nick.
stuff.
If you fine, I don't agree, but you know, if you think
You
that
don't
that's
agree
what
with
the
the last two
statistics,
minute report?
I don't know. I don't always agree with the last 2 minute report. Sometimes it comes out and I don't agree with it. Sometimes I do agree with it. Sometimes you disagree with it.
I
Sometimes
listen.
you don't agree.
There's times that I disagree. Okay, the last 2 minute report said that wasn't a foul on Brunson in this last game. I
That's
don't even
right.
know what that means. Saying that after a guy releases the ball, that contact after there is incidental. I don't know. Does this a rule that they changed in the last? I don't know. Did they change this rule All-Star break as well? Because my entire life I've seen guys release a ball, and then when a guy runs through them, the ref calls that a foul. And that's not even just at the NBA. That's at every level. So I don't know. I don't even know what that means. But what I'm saying is that when the Knicks have 18 and the next team has 11, there's some statistical credence to that. That's what the NBA is saying after reviewing it. I don't think that's just that's not just like my own anecdotal evidence. That's actual hard evidence.
Right. But like you said, sometimes you disagree with the 2 minute report. Sometimes I disagree. Sometimes we all disagree. I mean, just because you're telling me those statistics show that doesn't mean I should say, I'm going to say, oh, okay, well, then yeah, I agree. Then I don't think that's been as big a part of our losing games as you do, Nick. I think that it's played a part in some games, definitely. I mean, the refs play a part, but I think more often than not, the games that we lose are games that we could have won if we played better, not what the refs did. But
Yeah, I think every game that we lose, we could have won if we played better.
that's right.
I think
That's
I
right.
think I
And
think
I and
that's
I think
that's
and
no
I think
matter what.
every game that we
If we lose
lose,
by
if we
20,
want to,
that's the case.
but yes, but every close game that we lose, we can't blame the refs.
But every close game that no, we lose close games where there's not bad calls. I blame the ones when there's bad calls, when there's horrible
Okay.
or awful calls. Tibbs obviously super frustrated. Brunson has been a little bit more tight-lipped, but he alludes to it somewhat. What do you think about Tibbs' statements that he had last game, before last game, when he was talking about Julius coming back? I've heard some people say it sounds like it's up to Julius when he comes back or when he's comfortable. When I listened to it, I didn't really get that impression. What were your thoughts on what he had to say?
That's what it sounded like to me. He said, it's up to Julius when he feels he can take it or something like that. I heard the quote.
Not
I heard him talking about it, but he said it's up to Julius to let us know when he feels comfortable or something like that. Taking the rigors of, playing the way he plays or something like that. Nick, a couple of weeks ago, you said, yeah, I don't think they would have, if they were going to keep him out, then they would have already had an operation. I'm starting to get concerned as to whether or not he comes back at all. They keep saying he has to be cleared for contact. I think there's, what, 5, 8, 6 games left? He hasn't been cleared for contact yet. And like you say, maybe that'll happen just one game, one day of practice, which, by the way, everybody says they never practice now. So I don't know when he's going to get this contact that he needs. I don't know, man. I don't know. Maybe that'll be on a workout, the time off between the end of the season and the start of the playoffs, you know? And the OG thing, I don't even know what's happening. He's clearly not right. And, yeah, these injuries are a major concern at this point.
Listen, I'm not sure if it's, I think it's almost kind of silly to like be like, oh, is it the player? Is it the team? It's always a combination of both. Like that's
You would
that's
think.
always what it's going to be. Like if they're always going to talk to the player, ask the player first. He's going to give them information, and then the doctors are going to say, structurally this or that, blah 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 blah. I don't know. I mean, I'm getting extremely nervous about either of them coming back at this point. Like you said, we have a handful of games left. Neither of them are practicing currently. And it still does not make sense to me why, you know, Julius Randle is on the road playing, going through a tough workout right before the game if either he or the organization felt like, he should probably just go ahead and have surgery. I don't understand why you would do that if that were the case, like I don't understand why you wouldn't just go ahead and get the guy surgery, get more time for him to go ahead and go through his rehab, and why risk any more injury if you think that's ultimately going to be the route. Unless the only thing that would make sense if that's what they're actually doing, where they already think now that surgery is the route to go, is that they're somehow trying to like deke or fool other teams. No, that's not what they're trying to do. They're trying to figure it out. I think everybody's trying to figure it out. And I think that, listen, we know Julius is not soft. That's one thing you can't call him. He's never been that. He's a guy
No.
who's always like to play through injury. So if he feels like he can't go, and that's what it's coming down to, and it's just about him one day coming in and saying, all right, I'm ready, then I hope he has a plan. But I don't know what the hell is going on. OG, I know less about him as a player, just as far as like watching him over the years. I know what some other people have said about him, especially those from Toronto. But I'm just hoping that obviously they can get back. And yeah, I don't think to me, if they can't come back until the playoffs, that's a recipe for disaster as well. These guys got to play basketball together a little bit. They got to
Yeah.
not just play basketball like in some workouts and scrimmages against their teammates. They got to figure out a way to get out there before then. Hopefully they can. And I mean, we'll see. We'll see obviously here in this next week or so.
I mean, look, if they can't make it back and play maybe in a couple games before the end of the season, that's what you'd want, right? But
Yeah.
if they can't, then obviously we'll take it that they play in some workouts or some hard scrimmages and then play in the game. Obviously, we'll take that. We don't want that, but we'll take it. Nick, what I don't want to see is this. I don't want to see Julius come back, gets hurt like first or second game because he really wasn't ready, and now we're going to go into surgery. Okay? I feel like that should have been decided a month and a half ago. 2 months ago. And if we waited on this hope that he could be okay and heal, and then it doesn't work, instead of getting that done a month or two ago and get ready for next season, that to me is a huge waste, because I feel like, I don't know. I mean, listen, I'm no doctor, but if he gets this operation now, let's say at the end of the season or between now and the end of the season, is he going to be ready for next season? I don't
Well,
know.
Dad, he's going to get the operation after the season regardless. Either way, I think even if he comes back and
Well,
if he
if
comes
that's
back
the case,
if he comes back
if,
and he plays well, I still think that they would. I mean, that's what they said that from the beginning, that like they're almost definitely going to operate on this at some point.
yeah, it's very shaky, man. I don't like the smell of this for a long time now. I just don't think it's going to work out for Julius with us this year. I really don't. I've been feeling that way for a while. Haven't said anything. Want to remain hopeful, but every day that goes by, I don't get it. We're talking about contact, and he's not having any contact. So clock's ticking, and it's ticking very loudly.
Yeah, I maintain that I think that it's going to happen. It's going to happen quickly. Like one of the things that I heard Tibbs say within that was like it could happen today, it could happen tomorrow. So he said he still obviously holds an optimism. Obviously, Tibbs is not going to go up there in that situation to be pessimistic. But I do think I listen. I do still think at some point it is going to happen this season, and it's not just me being hopeful. It is my thought. Just because if it doesn't, then I just don't. Then I really don't understand, like you said, how it's been dealt with. thus far. So that would make even less sense to me if he just gets shut down now. Like it's like, wait, what? Well, so what were we doing this entire time?
Well, they're going to have to let him come back and try. I don't think they shut him down unless they have practices and boom, his shoulder explodes in practice. I mean, if that's the case, then you shut him down. But if he does practice, unless he's in so much pain or his shoulder goes bad, you got to roll him out there and see what happens, right?
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if there's a chance of him coming back injuring it and therefore injuring it worse, where the rehab will be longer if he has to. Because like I said, I think
That's what I'm
the
saying.
surgery is a foregone conclusion. But we don't obviously want him to have something where now he's missing, beginning of next season too. Who knows? I really don't. And the other thing that I've heard people talk about both when this happened to John Morant and with Julius is that as compared to some like you tear your ACL and they're like, okay, you have a torn ACL and this is the surgery that you're going to get and this is how long it's going to take. They say that the degrees of the labrum tear are so
Right.
vast that it's very hard to gauge all of those things.
I get
I
it.
don't know, man. We'll see. Get well, Julius. Other than that, in Knicks land, we did see a encouraging game from our guy Bogey.
Mm-hmm.
He went 7 of 11. He finally shot the ball well. DiVincenzo ended up having a big game. Some people talked about Tibbs' lineup at the end and not reinserting DiVincenzo. I don't know what game they were watching, but
Bogey was playing well.
Bogey's playing well. Deuce is playing well. He hit the biggest shot of the game at one point to make us down. Was it the tie? No, he hit a game to make us down either by 1 or 2 after we had tied the game, and then they went back up by 4. And so yeah, I don't really, Tibbs. One thing I'll give Tibbs credit for always is that he plays the hot hand. I've seen him leave Julius on the bench. The only person I've never really seen him leave on the bench because something was going so well is Brunson. He typically finds a way to get Brunson back in the game, but I can even think of some times with where Quickly was going off and maybe Brunson didn't get reinserted as quickly as as you would expect. But I didn't really have a problem with that. Bogey, listen, I'm gonna need to see 3 or 4 solid games from you in a row before I have any faith in you. Alec Bricks continues to be crazy up and down. Your guy Precious, that foul by Precious, it was the
The
stupidest
foul by Precious was the
foul.
stupidest foul. Oh my God.
Now, right
Brutal.
before that,
But
Precious has a fantastic tap in, and I'm loving
like
Precious.
two huge plays before that.
Who he plays,
But
but
that
that
foul
foul
was
now.
idiotic. Idiotic. It was
What do
so
you
stupid.
think?
It
That you're
was
just
so
gonna
stupid.
run?
I
You're gonna
mean, yeah,
run
he
through
just
this guy's chest?
literally ran the man over. He ran him over.
If he was standing if the guy had somehow slipped out of the way, Precious would have run into the person sitting in the front row. I mean, he was just
Right.
flying through him.
And oh, by the way, Precious, you're not blocking his 3-point shot. Okay? Can we stop? And I heard some people say, oh, why did they reinsert
Hartenstein.
Hartenstein? Precious playing great until he did that.
But Hartenstein was having a very good game overall.
He
And
was,
he's
but
the
in
only
that little
person.
stretch,
Yeah.
he stayed with the hot hand, the hot group. He
And
was
it was
playing
the
well.
group.
He was moving. He was blocking. He was doing things,
It
man.
was the group. And
But
they were playing small.
yeah, that foul was just.
Yeah, it was the
Man.
group. They were playing small. Precious does a good job of switching out, and then Terry Rozier was killing us off the switch, so that was another
That's
thing
right.
as well. Freaking scary Terry. Jesus, that guy last night
Killed us.
driving me
Killed
bananas.
us.
We
Best
both.
game as a Heat.
How many times have we heard that story? And
I
you
know.
and I, we both were nervous when he came over, and now this guy just goes out and he's just like, absolutely torches us. And that last dagger was just, I mean, an absolute
Brutal.
dagger. Fade away, great defense, still bang. And yeah, fuck him. I hate the Heat so much. I hate the Heat so
I know.
much. And freaking Bam Adebayo, man. I'm telling you, if I saw him walking down the street, I'd run up behind him and trip him. He's so dirty, yo. He's doing dirty shit all the time. And he tripped Brunson last night. And I don't care what anybody says. There's no way that he did that on accident. He absolutely did it on purpose. Jaime Jaquez, whatever you want to call him. He should have caught an elbow yesterday at some point during the game for Lowbridge and Julius. I hate the Heat so much.
I'm not a Heat fan, and I don't want to see them in the playoffs. I got to tell you that
Heat
they are not a good. I know
it's so stupid.
They are always a bad matchup for us. I do not want to play them.
Listen,
I don't want to play them.
I think if we're fully strength, we wax them. And I'm not
right.
I almost want to beat them in a playoff series. Honestly,
okay.
I don't want.
I wouldn't mind if somebody else beat them. I have to say this though. In that game last night was one of the first times all season. I feel like Brunson looked tired.
Well, he was sick.
Well, okay, maybe that was it. But Brunson, I also think too, Nick, that the weight of all of this is weight. I mean, come on, man. There's a lot of weight on him. He needs a real second fiddle. The whole team is getting tired from the weight. The guys like Hart and Precious, all these guys having to play starters minutes and all of that, that's weighing on our team. That's why we need those other guys back so badly. Obviously, if we don't get them back, we just got to make do. But I think you're starting to see chinks in the armor because we're running on 6 cylinders instead of all 8, and we've been doing well with it, but I think the weight of it is starting to show a little bit. I mean, but listen, we just lost 3 games. If we win 3 games in a row, then I'll probably feel differently. But I do
Exactly.
think, it's a lot to carry, Nick. It's a lot to carry, especially for Brunson.
I think Brunson's fine. He's built for it. I think that he was sick last night, and that's why he didn't really. And I think that and I think he wasn't feeling well going into the game. He had an off night, so I think that that makes him. And Brunson is just he always looks like a little bit down. That's kind of just like his look.
Hmm. I
And
thought
I
last night was more,
but yeah,
who
it,
knows? I'm
it
no
did come
doctor.
out. They asked him about it, whether or not he was, the reports that he wasn't feeling well, that he had a head cold, and of course he just blew it off. But I think that last week when we won three, the guy just he's 3 games away from scoring 61 points. Like
I know.
I think he's just fine. I think that we do need to get guys back. I think that's super important. But I think it's more about the fact that yeah, and not just losing 3 straight, but losing 3 straight where the first 2 you get clearly fucked by the refs and you lose close games. I think that those are things that I think that I probably have looked a little bit down the last couple of days just as a regular person. I'm sure those guys do with what they with being actually being out there in between the lines. Um, and another thing, I've said this before. I've never seen Breen criticize the refs as much in one game as he did last night. And he always gives the refs the benefit of the doubt. And he was not just talking about last night, he was comparing it to previous games. And he was like, now I don't really understand how. And they went and talked about the refereeing from the previous game. Breen never does that. I think that is an illustration of how a lot of Knicks fans feel and a lot of people around the organization feel when it comes to the officiating recently. And yeah, like I said, Breen he's always taking the ref side. If he's feeling that type of way, I think there's something to it. Metropolitans. I hate that it's like that Simpsons that Simpsons thing, like, yeah, here we start with the Mets and it's the first pitch and the season is over.
No, I had the perfect thing. I posted the other day. I meant to show it to you. That somebody said posted something. I don't know if you saw this. That said, how the Yankees feel at the start after 4 games, how the Mets feel after 4 games, and the Yankee thing. I must admit, even as a Yankee fan, the shit was funny. The Yankees, they just showed like Tony Soprano sitting back in front of Satrial smoking a cigar. Just chilling. And then the Mets thing, the guy in Game of Thrones, the one prince who,
Joffrey.
No,
No,
not
not
Joffrey,
Joffrey, the
his
other younger
brother,
brother. The
right?
younger
Who
brother.
just
Yeah, yeah,
walked
yeah.
up and just fell off the ledge.
Yeah, I saw that.
That was pretty funny, Nick. But yeah, it's disgusting. I'm not happy with the beginning. I'm very stressed out. It's a very, very bad look. And you know what? I heard Michael Kay say something today, and it was on a commercial because I don't usually listen to his show. And he said, "Listen, man, can you lose the season at the start of the season? Yeah. Can you make the season at the start of the season? Yeah. And I'm not. He wasn't saying this, but if the Mets do some shit like start out the start of the season like 4-19 or some shit like
It's
that,
over.
the season's over.
Over.
Okay, over.
And
And he made
then
the
we're selling Pete at the deadline. Shit like that is
yeah.
happening
That's
now.
right. That's right. That's right. That doesn't bode well for Pete. Doesn't bode well for anything. That's a disaster if it happens. Thing. We got to pick it up like yesterday. Okay, and the game tonight again is rained out. They're playing a doubleheader, single admission
Yeah.
doubleheader tomorrow. Yeah, we need to pick it up immediately. I read today they signed this pitcher. Did you see that?
Listen, I was just watching the Yankees beat the Diamondbacks in extra innings at a work event. They now moved to 6-1, and so I'm like totally off the grid today. Like I haven't really been paying attention to much. So no, I
Yeah,
did
the
not
Mets
see the
just
finesse.
signed some Hispanic guy. I forget his name, but they've been looking at him the last few days. the last week or so, and yeah, the Mets just signed him. Yes, they need some pitching help.
Oh,
Of course, Tyler.
oh,
Yeah,
okay.
he's a good pitcher.
Julio
He's a
Teheran.
two-time
Okay,
All-Star. Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
Yeah. I did not see this, but I like that. Okay.
of course,
Yeah,
of
yeah,
course.
yeah. I was thinking it's
Tyler
gonna be somebody's name
McGill.
who I didn't know.
No, Tyler McGill on the shelf again.
Back
This
on
guy
the
gets hurt
shelf
every
with this
year. I
freaking
mean,
guy, man.
did he even pitch a game?
He came out and he pitched and he freaking walked a bunch of guys and he said his shoulder hurt. And, that's that. I mean, yeah. And he's the guy who had a good who he was like one of the bright spots of the spring that we thought like,
Right,
okay,
right.
he
Yeah,
won a rotation spot.
yeah, no.
Yeah, get him out of here.
Yeah, he's done.
Yeah,
He's done. Every
yeah.
year it's an injury.
Same shit with this guy, him and Peterson, who's injured right now, and it's the same thing with him all the time too. They're
Oh
both.
God, yes. I didn't even know he was still on the team. David Peterson? Come on, man. That guy stays injured, man.
Stays hurt. Listen, I think that, like you said, the season can be lost in April. Like it absolutely
Yeah,
can if you get too behind the eight ball, especially when you're in the same division as the Braves, who
that's right.
just seem like they score 7+ runs every game, and they're just they're all young and fantastic. 70 something steals, 40 home runs. What kind of shit is that? They get rid of this guy Freddie Freeman and they just bring in this guy Olsen. Now, Freddie Freeman has continued to just be an absolute monster, but I mean, that's a pretty good replacement down there.
I'll say.
And yeah, man, listen, man, they gotta fix it. These rainouts couldn't have come at a better time. Take a couple days, get away, go out there, maybe feel like you're restarting the season a little bit. Like
Something.
something's got to change because I mean, our hitting is just so anemic right now. And
Whoa,
you
whoa,
got
whoa,
you.
whoa. What do you think about McNeil in the cleanup spot?
I hate it.
I don't like it either. And I don't know what this guy Mendoza is trying to do, something, I don't know, shake things up, but what are we doing? What are we doing? And
I
what
hate it.
was Pete batting second or third? Did I see him batting second one day?
He's batting second. Yeah.
I don't know. I listen, these guys know much more about baseball than I do. Okay. So there's
But
maybe
you can't
some
switch it the whole lineup 4 games in. That's crazy.
right. So then what do you do now? You're gonna keep them at cleanup? Squirrel at cleanup?
No. Listen, to
No.
me, in my
No. What's his
opinion,
name? Alvarez has to come up. And then listen, I don't know what JD Martinez is doing in the minor leagues,
they
but
say it
let's
might be
go.
up Sunday. Sunday, they say.
Let's go. Let's get him up here yesterday,
I don't
man.
care
Come
exactly.
on.
That's the thing.
I don't care what he's doing.
What he's doing down there. I don't care how out of
I don't
rhythm
care.
he is.
Get
We
him up.
need you, guy. Come on,
Get
let's
him
go.
up here.
Get him
If he
up here
swings with
right
one
now.
arm, get him up here.
Yes. I'm trying to go through right now who in the optimal who I like in the lineup because I there's two guys who have not been hitting in the two hole who, in my opinion, as Mets, when I've seen them, their best work has been when they've been hitting in the two hole, and that is Marte and that is Squirrel. I loved. Remember that year Squirrel was hitting in the two hole. He was fantastic,
That's right.
fantastic. So you got Nimmo leading off, obviously. Which listen, if he don't start doing something, Nimmo all of a sudden not only is he not tearing the cover off the ball, but he's not seeing pitches. He's not taking walks. He's just Nimmo, dude. If you can't at least have a good on base percentage, you become a much less
Yeah.
valuable baseball
Come on.
player.
Come on.
And we gotta have one of those two and a two. Lindor at the 3, Pete at the 4, JD at the 5, and then have Francisco Alvarez at the 6. And then whichever one of those guys is in the 2, he's probably in the 7. Is almost like that, lead off guy for the end of the line. I don't fucking know. They suck. It's so frustrating. I just want them to suck. I don't know. That's it. We don't need to talk anymore, Mets. Mets, give us something to talk about positive next week. Give us something to break down other than the fact that nobody can hit the ball. All right. So Jets obviously signed, or rather traded for Hassan Reddick. We talked about
Yes,
that last week.
sir.
Hey man, I love this guy's energy so far. I love the stuff
Oh
he's
yeah.
been
Oh
talking
yeah.
about. He's coming in. He seems very excited to be a Jet. He clearly is excited to play with this defense. I don't know if we're going to get him a contract, before the season starts, or we're going to, give him a contract afterwards. I don't care. I just can't wait to see this guy just be out there and destroy defenses. The guy's a monster. He's so quick off the ball. He's like everything you see from Jermaine, but like a step up. So hopefully Jermaine
Yeah.
can learn
Yeah.
some things from him. Hopefully
Mhm.
Jermaine makes another jump like he did, last off season. And then we just have these two monsters coming off the edge, and we got all of our big men, specifically our guy Quinnen, just eating quarterbacks coming straight up the middle. Our defense has a chance to be really scary. The Jets obviously are all of a sudden, a lot of people are looking at them as a team that, has a chance to be a contender once again. we know it comes down to health. No reason to talk about that anymore. But I'm really excited about what we can do.
I'm very excited as well, but listen, as every year we know as Jet fans, you just got to wait. It's a wait and see game, right? I was surprised earlier to hear some guys on ESPN saying that, like I think Booger McFarland, your favorite guy, said that no way the Jets could win the AFC East, no chance, absolutely not, were his exact words. I don't understand that.
Was
I
his
mean,
next
and
was his
that
next
was with the belief that they're going to be healthy,
Listen,
you know.
Booger's an idiot. I'm surprised he didn't say, the football is brown and the field is green, and the Jets will have green on their jerseys as well. That's typical analysis that you get from Booger. I mean, he's
Right.
just Mr. Captain Obvious. When he was on that, like when he was on when he was on the cart during the Monday Night Football games, was
Oh
an
God, that was a
absolute
disaster.
joke. How nobody involved in that said, this ain't a good idea. I'll never know. But yeah,
No,
listen.
bad idea.
The Jets, especially with the hype that they had last year and the way that it crashed and burned, not going to be a lot of people stepping out on that ledge talking about, the Jets and what they can possibly do. I did hear Swagoo say that he thinks that the Jets are definitely contenders after the addition of Hassan Reddick. But, with the Jets, it's obviously going to be waiting and see. It's going to all have to do with the health.
That's good to hear that Swagger feels that way. I mean, we need some more people feeling positive, but it just shows you, Nick, that if the Jets start playing well early next year, you're going to get a lot of support and people jumping on the bandwagon. If they suck, people are just going to bury them immediately. People look to bury the Jets, and it's because of our history. I get it, but the Jets are just like an easy, low-hanging fruit for somebody who wants to come up with a snappy line or whatever. And obviously, as Jet fans, we want that to stop. We want that to end. So, we see what happens next year. We'll have our moment someday.
Sure. Someday. That's someday. I've been believing you my whole life. I'm gonna keep on believing you. It ain't easy, man. It ain't easy, especially here recently. But gotta
The
keep hope
struggle
alive.
continues. The struggle continues. That's right.
Well, it got a little bit easier for the Jets in the AFC East because Stephon Diggs was traded today to the Texans. He was traded to the Texans for a second round pick. The Texans send back a second round pick and also, I think, a fifth and a sixth as well. Hey man, whenever people talk about Diggs and the fact that he wants out, I always look back to the fact that Josh Allen really blew up when he got Stephon Diggs. And
Mhm.
I think this guy is a fantastic receiver, fantastic hands, a game changer, and I'm happy he's out of the division.
I am too. I am happy he's out of division for the Jets, but I never, a couple of like last season, you were saying, you would love to have gotten, I wouldn't have wanted a guy like Stephon Diggs. And I think part of it is I don't like his act. He's that diva type receiver who's always bitching and moaning when he doesn't get the ball. But he's a very good player. I think when he gets to Houston, he's going to have to tone that down a little bit because, listen, man, you're not the alpha dog there that the quarterback is.
CJ Stroud.
Okay, right, and then you got other receivers there. I just think he'll play it smart. He's not a stupid man. I'm not as big a fan of his way of doing things, but I think it's better for the Jets that they don't have to play him 2 times a year. So I'm happy about that. That's all that really matters to me.
Yeah. I think that some of that stuff is I think some of that stuff is overblown. I think a lot of receivers over time have been, hey, just give me the damn ball types. And I think that part of that, some guys, that mindset is part of what feeds into their greatness. And I
We've
think
been saying
that
that for years about Draymond, and you see now what it becomes. That the way he acts, pushing it to the edge. I don't know if that's always the case. I mean,
yeah, but
I
that's
think he
because
can be
Draymond has
great.
gone over the edge more recently.
Right? No, no, and Stephon honestly has not done anything like that. No, not at
No.
all. But I think that sometimes we say, well, this is part of what makes him great. I think you can control yourself and still be great. I think people that say that they got to be that way to be great, or we give them excuses and say they got to be that way to be great. I think that's an excuse. I think they can control themselves.
I think throughout history, a lot of the, especially when you look at the greatest, like not just the good ones, but the greatest.
Hmm.
There's quite often, certain things about their personalities that aren't necessarily the easiest to get along with. A lot of people refer to them as assholes, refer to them as this or as that. Now, is there obviously examples of guys who are all-time greats who everybody says they're the nicest guy in the world? Yes. I think it's more often that the all-time greats are not necessarily looked at that way, especially during their playing days, from their teammates and just from people around them. I do think that mentally having that chip on your shoulder, having that just like that unconscious, just out of this world belief in yourself. I think it's almost, you almost have to be delusional to a certain extent to get to that level. And I think maybe, yeah. Listen, I don't know if it's definitely not necessary, like I said, but I've seen it a lot. Is all I'm saying throughout my life and watching sports. I think that I don't know what their plan is in Buffalo as far as replacing him, but you're not going to draft some rookie who's going to be as good as him right now. Okay.
And they got rid of Gabe Davis too.
Gabe Davis is
He's
gone for
out.
sure.
He's
Yeah.
gone, Nick. They've got, listen,
Where is he though? Where'd he
Poyer.
go?
I don't remember.
Yeah, he went to
But
Jacksonville. Jacksonville.
you're right. But Poyer or whatever the defensive their safety,
The
he's
safety,
gone
yeah.
too. They bought
Poyer's
some
gone too.
interesting guys, Nick. And I heard somebody break it down earlier that it's the salaries coming to bear.
Yeah.
You
It's that
know, it's
Josh
what
Allen
they,
money.
that's right. And it's what the Jets are going to be going through in about 2-3 years.
Hmm.
That's why we've got to capitalize in this window.
Hmm.
Because that same shit's going to be happening when you got guys like Garrett Wilson and Sauce coming up for new contracts.
Yep.
You
And the
know?
reason that Houston's able to add all these weapons is because they have
That's
that
right.
quarterback on that rookie salary.
That's right.
But yeah, I think that he steps in and you give a player of his caliber to a guy like CJ Stroud, and that's going to be crazy out there. They already got a bunch of weapons. They added Dalton Schultz this offseason. They got some guys coming back off of injury. They added some weapons on the defensive end too. Like, yeah, they're definitely looking to making a come up. And now, we're lucky enough to have our esteemed women's college basketball expert. We could talk about Caitlin. Like, you watch women's college basketball more than any person I know, much more than I do, and like I said, more than anybody. But Caitlin Clark, obviously, we had some really compelling games. I thought it was really cool that I think they drew like 12.3 million. It was like one of the biggest. I think it's like the second biggest draw that ESPN had this
They
entire
said the
year.
biggest.
I thought they said it was one
They
NBA
said that's
Finals
the
game that was
biggest
bigger.
on all ESPN platforms. Is the most viewership they've gotten for any single event,
Okay,
which sounds amazing to me, but that's what they said.
listen, lots of obviously storyline with Caitlin Clark and what she has done for the women's game with her playing. See, this is something that we get more so in the women's game where there's a storyline that's built up over seasons between
That's
them and
right.
LSU. So I think that had a lot to do with the
A
intrigue
lot,
into that as
of
well.
course.
And yeah, obviously this girl Caitlin Clark is next level, man. I mean, her and I'm impressed with her entire floor game. She's not just a shooter. She doesn't shoot as much of that like push shot like you see some of the women do in the ladies' game. She shoots more of a up above her head shot, and It's gonna be interesting to see what she can do moving forward, getting to the next level. And it's gonna be fun to watch. What this does to women's college basketball moving forward because I heard a conversation about whether or not she is the greatest of all time, and a lot of people are bucking back at that. First of all, almost all of the other women that you talk about greatest of all time, they have not just a championship, they have multiple
Multiple.
championships. So I
Right.
think that right there takes her out of it. And also just with her size, if you really look at like not the stats accumulated, but okay, if you had this particular player and this particular player, which one of them is better? It's hard to say that she's better than some of these other women that have played previously. The Candace Parkers, the freaking Diana Taurasi's, a lot of different people that you could have in that conversation. To me, what she is similar to Steph. Steph's not the greatest player, but Steph is probably the most impactful player that I've seen in my lifetime. Jordan is the only other person you can really talk to. It's just as far as changing how the game is played. And I think that she is going to be that. We're going to see that over the next few years, next decade in the women's game. You're going to see a lot more of these young girls that are shooting the ball from farther away and, not necessarily just trying to, pull up right at that 3-point line. We've seen what Steph has done for the male game with that. And it seems like she's going to do the same thing when it comes to the ladies.
Yeah, she's something else, man. I really really enjoy watching her play. I think it's going to be very interesting seeing her play against Connecticut Friday night because I think Connecticut's a better team. And see, that's the main issue here. When we talk championships, again, this is basketball, not tennis. There's 5 people on the court. So I think it's unfair sometimes. And I think you almost have to kind of delineate, are you talking best player or greatest of all time type thing? Because greatest of all time is always going to involve championships, right? When we talk about people like that.
Sure.
But best player, I mean, look, man, her team's not that good. The rest of the team is okay. They're not that good. You know what it reminds me of? For you old heads out there, Danny Manning and the Miracles. When Danny Manning won that championship in Kansas, his team was not that good, dude. He was just that guy, and he could lift the whole team. And she lifts her whole team. So when she has a good game and can really make those passes, she lifts the entire team. Listen, she had ended up with 12 assists that game. She could have had 18 assists, easy. Some of these girls missed easy shots that she gave, and they just missed them. But, and you see that obviously a lot more in the women's game. But, I think this game against Paige Buckets Friday night is going to be very interesting to see who can win that game, because obviously you got the great Gino Auriemma and that Connecticut team, which is where what's the name grew up wanting to go. She wanted to go to Connecticut, but she wasn't recruited by them. Yep. I don't think, or Iowa came at her strong. I don't know. But, I mean, it's going to be a good one. And then I think you got South Carolina on the other side, who, I'm sorry, North Carolina, they're a great Cinderella story, but I think South Carolina's going to steamroll them. And I think South Carolina may, in fact, steamroll whoever they get in the championship game, because
nobody's beating South Carolina.
I think South Carolina's just too good.
They're just too good. They're too good. And it's pretty cool that you have UConn and South Carolina both in the Final Four on both the men's side and the women's side in the NCAA tournament. That's interesting. Interesting going to be seeing this center matchup over on the men's side between Iowa and South Carolina. That's going to be some old school basketball, something that we don't see very often. Both of those guys are not just big, but they play in the paint. So that's going to be interesting to see. But Caitlin Clark, I think, like you said, unfortunately, I think even if she does find a way to get past UConn, I don't think that they're going to beat South Carolina. It's basketball, it's single elimination. Anything can happen. I think it would be best for the game if she was able to somehow figure out a way to go ahead and get to the podium at the end. But we'll just have to see. Be interesting to see how the Final Four goes on both sides. And man, this girl Caitlin Clark, I think she's going to be a hell of a pro. I think her game is even more suited for the pro game. I really do. I think she's Ionescu, but just better. And we've seen how successful she's been. You pair her with a Brianna Stewart type, somebody who can play, inside, outside a little bit in the WNBA, and she's gonna be hell to deal with.
Absolutely. I think she's going to be very good in the pros. I mean, I don't know who's going to get to draft her, but that's going to be a major score and a major draw. How many kids she's going to put in the seats. How many people are going to want to go see her play? I know I'd want to go see her play if she came out here. And, I mean, I look at the flip side to that. I look at like an Angel Reese. Angel Reese, I thought, played a very good game the other night. I was bummed out with, all the emotions she went through after the game. I felt badly for her. But then again, like I heard Barton Hahn say earlier, listen, man, she's upset and she's crying with all the nasty letters she's getting and this, that, and the other thing. When you're a big time and you're a champion, you're big time in this country, you're going to get some negative press. Okay, trust and believe it. All these guys like LeBron and whatnot, everybody loves them, but they're getting a lot of negative press. They're getting a lot of people send them nasty grams all the time. So you got to let that go, Angel. You got to let that go. You got to just rise above that. And I'm sure that's exactly what she's done all year. She just, and I'm sure it was the emotions of the end of season and what just happened, the losing of that game that really overwhelmed her there on the podium, because she hasn't shown that all year, but it happens, but my first point is, I don't think she's going to be such a great pro. I honestly don't. Because I think she's like 6'2", 6'3". I think there's a lot of girls who are 6'2", 6'3", women who are 6'2", 6'3" in the WNBA who are a lot more skilled. And she's, I think she's pretty good, but I don't know how that translates to the pro game. Just like I don't think Zach Edey translates that great to the pro game.
Yeah, I don't see her being like a world beater in the pros, but I think that she'll be a solid pro. And when it comes to the hate and everything online, I think you got to not read it. I honestly think you got to be
Right,
disciplined
right.
when you're that because there's always going to first of all the negative hurts more than the positive. I'm sure the positive feels good, but and the type of people that are going and commenting on things online are typically going to be the type of people who are going to talk shit. People are more
That's right.
motivated by the negative than they are by giving you
Absolutely.
affirmations typically. And so she's got to figure out a way to not read that because I think it's hard for her not to get caught up in that moment and feel some type of way and realize, I mean, what is this girl, 22 years old, 23? Shit, man. I can't imagine having to deal with that as a grown man. Like I damn sure
Right.
can't imagine having to deal with it when you're, at that age where other people's, feelings about you. I mean, listen, people have called me an idiot, called you a crackhead in the comments. We laugh at that shit. We think it's hilarious. but there was that comment. It's like, yo, that old man needs to stop smoking crack. And we laugh at that shit.
Not for at least 5 years.
Yo, man, don't be saying that on the waves. Yo, people might take you seriously. No, but no, man. Seriously, like I can't imagine how hard that I can't. Seriously, I thought about this with her, and I thought about the fact that even something like this, our little podcast that we have, those negative comments would have hurt my feelings when I was 22 as an
Yeah,
almost 40-year-old man. I literally think it's funny. It doesn't bother me in the slightest. But when I was 22 years old, who knows if I'd have been able to take something like that? And I'm not dealing with it on 1 millionth of the scale that she is. So,
that's right.
yeah, hope she can figure out a way to just keep her mind right and focus on the rest of her career doing things. She's got opportunities and skills outside of the game too. And she's got a lot ahead of her in life. She's got a lot to be proud of and thankful for. And it just sucks that she's been made to not feel that way because, some negative assholes online. Last note, real quick, the Indiana Fever. They
Our
have
number one
their
pick.
number one pick.
Oh my gosh.
Basketball
Yeah,
place, man. They're going to love her
right.
in
They're gonna
Indiana.
love her. Iowa, Indiana. Yeah, it's gonna be big.
Catch us every week on YouTube or wherever you find your podcasts. Please follow, like, comment, and subscribe. And make sure you hit that notification button on all platforms. Really appreciate all love. We try to stay as current as possible, so episodes will drop on Thursdays or Fridays, depending on the Knicks schedule. And you can find us on all socials at he_did this to me. Love you, big guy.
Love you, kid.